All right, we are now live. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. This past week has been obviously full of extremely raw emotions, from grief to fury, frankly. And the overall consensus on the right seems to be that everyone is totally fed up with the far left agitators, as well as mainstream Democrat apologists. No one is taking anything from anyone with a D next to their name in politics right now. And that includes attacks on the Heartland Institute from sitting senators, which we are not taking lying down, especially not right now. There is a dangerous media environment, or there has been for the last couple of decades, that has led to the murder of Charlie Kirk, in which a shocking number of people immediately celebrated. And now we're seeing the backlash that might actually be unprecedented in how fast and total it has been. So we are going to talk about all of this and more in episode 511 of the In the Tank podcast.
Yeah, Charlie, I want to thank you specifically because I used to be a Bernie Sanders supporter. I used to be a Democratic Socialist. It was one of your videos that really woke me up, and you're an inspiration.
Wow.
You're awesome. Thank you.
You are why I do what I do.
Hey, everybody. So yeah, that video was actually of our intern, Ian. So he's we're very, very happy to have him, and we're very proud that Charlie Kirk was able to influence him to come over from the dark side, so to speak. So welcome to the In the Tank podcast, everybody. I am Linnea Lucan, your host. We also have Jim Lakely, Vice President and Director of Communications at the Heartland Institute, Sam Karnick, Senior Fellow at the Heartland Institute, and we are also joined by a very special guest today, James Taylor. Not that one, but the president of the Heartland Institute.
Not that special, but thank you, Linnea.
You got it. So before we get started, you guys, as always, if you want to support the show, you can go to heartland.org/inthetank and donate there. And you can click the thumbs up to like the video. And remember that sharing it helps to break through some of YouTube's suppression. Even just leaving a comment helps. And if you're an audio listener, you can help us out a lot by leaving us a nice review. Okay. So we're going to get right into it here. We're not even going to have opening chat because there's a lot to get to, including some stuff, like I said at the top of the show, personal to the Heartland Institute. We are a little bit incensed by that situation. So our first topic that we're going to cover today is the left celebrating another killer, this one in the form of Luigi Mangione. So as a recap for people who might not be familiar with this or forgot, December of last year, Luigi Mangione walked up to Brian Thompson, who is CEO of the insurance company United Healthcare, and shot him, killing him. And it was all on video. So just this week, a judge dismissed the terrorism charges against the killer, although he still is being charged with murder. But this was met with the cheers of his very concerningly large fan club. The Wall Street Journal reports Mr. Mangione is disconcertingly popular among young Americans. In a poll in January, a month after the killing, students were asked with whom they sympathize more. 45% of them chose Luigi, 17% Brian Thompson, and 37% neither. 48% said that they view the killing as totally or somewhat justified. The scene at the courthouse is a festival of leftist causes, old and new. An elderly woman hawks copies of Workers' Vanguard, a newspaper of the Trotskyist Spartacus League. A young man rides a skateboard decorated with hammer and sickle. Another wears a cowboy hat and a Communists of America t-shirt. Digital billboard trucks featuring pro-Mangione messages drive in circles around the courthouse, and a woman wearing I Heart Italians t-shirt with Mr. Mangione's face in the middle tells journalists that this is just, I'm throwing this in here as an extra, but tells journalists that she has married a Luigi Mangione artificial intelligence chatbot and describes her Ersatz nuptials as the future of romance. So that's fantastic. Every time Mr. Mangione has appeared in court since his arrest in December, a spectacle has ensued. People wear Free Luigi t-shirts and Mario Bros apparel and insist contradictorily that Mr. Mangione is both innocent and justified in killing a healthcare CEO. So, Sam, I was really bothered at the time that this happened by how it was just kind of like either glossed over or even accepted by the mainstream media at the time, and that a lot of people, even some young people on the right, thought that Thompson like had it coming for being involved in our, corrupt healthcare system. So normalizing this kind of thing is incredibly disturbing to me.
The circus-like quality of the support being given to Mangione outside the courtroom is, I think it's emblematic of the situation, which is that there's no real sense of morality here. It's really just this is our tribe, and this is our guy, and so we're supporting him, and we're having fun here. It's a good time to be had by all. We'll just all enjoy ourselves and hope that Mr. Mangione gets freed and can go back out and kill more bad guys. It's a truly demented situation, but it comes from the long-term change that we've had in this country from a common culture to a multiculture. And the multiculture is meant to take over all of the country, and to do so by empowering a small oligarchy of government and media, academia and the like. So this all goes together, and I think that the fact that it is sort of an entertainment situation just shows how fragmented and amoral, I'm not saying immoral, although you could say that, but how fragmented and amoral our culture has become. It's become an omniculture. And in the omniculture, as I've mentioned before, everything happens. And it's happening now outside the courthouse there.
Yeah, and I mean, one of my concerns with this, with the way that the Brian Thompson murder was covered by the media, even then, was like, well, look at the glowing reaction that Luigi is getting in the media. They're making up all sorts of excuses for him and stuff. And so then we saw, Luigi-related memes and stuff associated with the recent church shooter. And so the concern now is, as always has been with mass shooters and assassins and stuff, is repeat instances where people are hoping that they can get some of the fanfare that Luigi is getting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could call on somebody, but I'm sure James
Sorry.
that's okay. Wants to weigh in on this as well, but yeah, I mean, in the immediate aftermath of the cold-blooded assassination of Brian Thompson, whose crime was being the CEO of United Healthcare. I would just note as an aside, I mean, I thought Obamacare was supposed to fix all of this. I guess that didn't work. Very expensive. And still, the health insurance companies are to blame. But in the immediate aftermath of his slaying, shot in the back, right in the middle of the street in New York City, the media are corrupt, utterly irredeemable media, contextualized it immediately by talking about, well, the healthcare system in this country really is broke. Do you know? I mean, you do realize how horrible the insurance companies are, right? And how and all this. I mean, that happened immediately at the time, and it comes as absolutely no surprise that there are these sick people out there who are Luigi Mangione fanboys, dressing up like Luigi character from Mario Brothers, just to really accentuate how broken their brains are that you would dress up like that. But we've kicked around this story at the Heartland Institute. We've talked about this on our own chats with each other, and of course all the things that has happened since Charlie's slaying at the hands of a leftist who was basically encouraged to do it by the mainstream media. We've talked about this a lot, about there is a very deep moral rot in our society, and it reaches our media. It's in our media, it's in our pop culture, it's in academia. And when you realize that, when you see that for the reality that it is, it does help explain, does not excuse, but helps explain some of the very, very sick things we are seeing on the streets today. I think a lot of other commentators have said that America will never be the same after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I am always very, very skeptical of such broad, sweeping statements, because I'm actually a little too cynical on that. I think most people don't want to change they want things to be the same, and they just want to go on about their lives and not really have to think about it anymore. It's very traumatic. But one thing it really has done, and I think it has exposed this moral rot, and it's deeper and broader than even I think see a lot of it even imagine.
Yeah, if I can weigh in for a second here, Jim, you hit it right on the head when you say the moral rot is deeper, wider than we could imagine. This isn't just a few people that are out there celebrating Luigi's murderous actions. This is the entirety of the media establishment that refuses to condemn, refuses to report accurately in terms of how horrendous the act is, and makes up excuses or does its best to humanize Luigi rather than the father who was murdered on the streets of New York. And it's the case with Luigi, it's the case with Charlie Kirk. It's the case anytime that someone on the left murders or attempts to murder politically, for political reasons, someone who's a conservative. The media jumps to their defense to excuse, to give rationale for, to say that the victim had it coming. And it's not just a few people, and it's beyond the media. It is basically the core of what is now the Democratic Party. It's the core of the political left. It's amusing when they use the term "love trumps hate," but it's clear that it's clear that their hate trumps all.
Absolutely. And this, I mean, our whole kind of episode subject this week is just what is wrong with these people. And every single section of our show touches on that, including this next one, which is just the general reaction from the left to Charlie's assassination. Our audience here saw last week how we reacted to the news. We were all just completely gutted. Probably the hardest broadcast that I've had to do. But everyone has seen what the left's reaction was, as James has illustrated. You could not open up a Facebook feed, X, Reddit, Blue Sky, whatever, without seeing a flood of left-wingers, and some you would never expect, like normal people that you have on Facebook, openly celebrating the murder. I've seen leftists immediately making and selling t-shirts. Okay, so it is sick. But, this didn't come out of nowhere. The left has been like this for a long time. Just recently, when those little kids were drowned in the floods in Texas, there were a lot of people making disgusting remarks about them. And we can't forget either when Hurricane Helena came through and leftists, even in local government positions in Florida, were casually talking about how Floridians and other Southerners who were suffering deserved it for not being on board with the climate cult. So the killing of Charlie Kirk was the last straw, I think. And it's gotten to the point where even some Democrats, Breitbart here reports that Dick Durbin, Senate Minority Whip, says that Democrats have gone too far with some of their rhetoric. He's quoted as saying, "This notion that we're going to characterize MAGA as Nazis is unacceptable, and the loss of Mr. Kirk is a good reason to learn that lesson." And he's absolutely right. Before I want to pass commentary back to you, James, Vice President J.D. Vance gave this speech that was maybe the most powerful speech that I've ever heard, and we were all remarking on it in chat earlier. On the 15th, he highlighted some polling that said that 24% of self-identified very liberal respondents believe that it's acceptable for someone to be happy about the death of a public figure that they oppose. Only 3% of very conservative respondents said so. Of liberals aged 18 to 44, 26% said that political violence is justified. Only 7% of conservatives agreed, and 12% of moderates. That number surprised me a bit. But James, so what? I mean, where do we go from here?
Well, I think we have to do what you're doing, Linnea, which is point out the truth. We have to call out the left for what it is. It's amazing. It used to be back when I was your age, Linnea. Being a liberal, the term was bleeding heart liberal. It was empathy. It was an attempt to relate to and with people who were undergoing hardship. But now that's no longer the case. The left, for anybody or anything they disagree with, their goal, their tactic, is to dehumanize, vilify, and set it up so that it's appropriate to do more than merely engage in verbal discussion, debate, combat, but to make it actual physical combat. What blew me away in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination, on my Facebook page, I really don't post much about politics unless it's something involving Heartland or me that I want my friends to know. And there are a lot of friends there that are people that I knew in grade school, middle school, high school, that are friends outside of it. So this is my feed. And many of my friends are on the left, and they engage in all sorts of rhetoric that really troubles me, but nevertheless. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, not a single one posted anything like, wow, I really disagree with him, but this is too far. For myself and other friends who posted showing our hurt, our outrage at what happened to Charlie personally, first and foremost, but also to society, not a single one, either on the page or privately, said, hey, I agree with you, this is too much. In fact, many of them were openly celebrating. This is the left, not just the fringe left. This is essentially 40% of the country. This is the folks who show up and vote for Democrats. It didn't used to be so hard of a Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal schism here. But there is something seriously wrong with the leftist mentality. It is a mentality that is built upon envy. It is built upon hate. The only reason that the left wants equity or equality or whatever is not because they want to lift people up. It's because it angers them that anybody might be successful or more successful than they are. Therefore, the goal is to chop them down. I think it's time that the word gets out that people who haven't quite found their political position, their ideological view, that they understand what truly is the mentality of the left. It is not love trumps hate. It is hate trumps all.
Yeah, excellent. We have some clips here and stuff of some of the reactions from leftists going that happened. There's this memorial that people put up to Charlie Kirk, and a couple of people, especially this girl that we have the video of, immediately came out to paint back over it with trans flag colors. And there are tons and tons of videos too of people going and like stomping on memorials. One of the guys who stomped on a Charlie Kirk memorial was wearing a shirt that's the same shirt that the shooter was wearing when he assassinated Charlie. Not this one, but this is still a good example. It's no wonder after years and years and years of the media saying that someone like Charlie Kirk is a Nazi or is a fascist, that his views are unacceptable in the public square, that they would resort to this after all of that. And it's been building for a long time. I mean, we don't really have time to cover it too much right now, but we're seeing now that there were probably some direct Antifa connections with this shooter. And so Trump is declaring Antifa a terror organization. We'll see where that goes, but it's it's obvious to anyone with eyes over the last couple of years that there is coordinated leftist violence, and it gets cover by the media and also by average everyday leftists who really they're either actively evil or they just aren't thinking and they just don't know better because all they get is their bubble, right? I mean, I don't want to say that like every random Democrat fully understands that they are completely and utterly wrong about the slander that's gone against Charlie in the last couple of years as he's become more and more successful, as he's become closer to the Trump administration. Jim, I can see that you're burning up to say something on that.
Yeah, I know. We joked before we went on the air that I usually take a lot of notes and get ready to say some things. But my mind has been spinning and just been going very fast with all of the news that's breaking over the last few days. But I want to go back to a couple of things. One is that YouGov poll that you read that the big takeaway is that 1/4 of people who identify as very liberal say that it's justified to kill somebody just because they have political and policy opinions that they don't like. And what we saw on the thousands and thousands, it could be millions of people who celebrated, who took joy in the public murder in front of his family and in front of really audience of millions around the world, took joy in the slaughter of an innocent man, a father whose crime was stating his opinions that that liberals don't adhere to. Democrats and Democrats, let's just be honest here. Democrats and the media that serve as a propaganda arm have created a permission culture for this sort of thing, not just political violence, but even the disgusting things like, thinking that you're the good guy if you stomp on a memorial to Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Thinking you're still the good guys when you deface a lovingly and beautifully painted memorial rock to Charlie Kirk on a college campus. They have this sense of moral superiority on this, and they feel that because of the left's absolute domination of academia, pop culture, and the media. And then I just want to, and then this kind of ties into Dick Durbin. I'm sorry, Dick, you don't get any points for coming out now and saying that, you know what, Democrats shouldn't be calling Republicans Nazis. You're right, that would be a bad idea. I want to just tell a quick little story. Well, first of all, it's very convenient for Dick Durbin to do that because he's not running for re-election again. He's done. So he doesn't have any need to appease the crazy radical left of his own party that the Democrats, let's face it, are very politically afraid to piss off. And they would piss them off if they were just human beings and acted like people with compassion and a heart regarding Charlie Kirk's assassination. That's plain fact. That's my opinion. I think it's factual. We can argue about it if you want, but I'm not going to argue much more right here. Second, there's a quick story about Dick Durbin. When I was a reporter at the Washington Times in 2005, I was covering Congress, and it was late in the afternoon. The Senate floor is empty. That's usually the time when senators, they just want to come on and give a speech to an empty chamber and get something on the record. But I was waiting for word from my editor that the story was good and I could go home. But I could hear what was happening, what was being said on the Senate floor. And Dick Durbin was talking about Guantanamo Bay. And Dick Durbin said, I had to look this up again. He said, regarding Guantanamo Bay, he said, you would most certainly believe this must have been done by Nazis, Soviets in their gulags, or some mad regime, Pol Pot and others that had no concern for human beings. So yeah, Dick Durbin actually has a clear history of using such what I think you can now call eliminationist rhetoric for his political opponents and to score political points. I was the first one. I was the only one who heard it. The Washington Times had the only story about it in the news, and it took a few days for the rest of the media to catch up and finally ask him about it if he took those words back, and then he finally apologized. So when I saw Dick Durbin of all people coming out being basically it looked like he was being held hostage, and they pushed him in front of the camera and made him say that we shouldn't call our opponents Nazis anymore. It's like, nah, you don't get any points at that.
Well, Jim, don't be too nice to him, because immediately after he said that, he did start doing the both sides thing, which reminds me of a clip that we want to play of JD Vance's speech, which I strongly recommend that all of our viewers go and find the full talk that JD Vance did, or like even if you have time, the full podcast that Vance did, filling in for Charlie Kirk on his own podcast. It was extremely touching to listen to him and Stephen Miller and some other people from the administration who knew Charlie talk about him. But his like closing monologue is probably the best 13 minutes of political speech ever, possibly. I mean, it's up there for sure, and it's definitely the right time. We are grabbing the clip. Let's see.
But consider the level of propaganda at work. Charlie was gunned down in broad daylight, and well-funded institutions of the left lied about what he said so as to justify his murder. But consider the level of propaganda at work. Charlie was gunned down in broad daylight, and well-funded institutions of the left lied about what he said so as to justify his murder.
Yeah, that, and then later he went on to say that it's certainly not a both sides issue. And it isn't. It's definitely not both sides at this, especially at this point. I mean, and it really never was. I think that the left has the longest history of political violence in this country. And they are bending themselves over backwards to try to say that the right has either just as much or more political violence. And you should see the way that they come to some of these statistics. It's pretty mind-boggling. But our third topic here today is just about the the media environment that has allowed all of this to happen. So we were going to talk more broadly about media, and I do want to say that, I don't think I've ever seen the Democrat establishment fumble their words and struggle so badly to find a narrative to stick to on any issue. It's pretty astonishing. Usually they all get in line pretty quick. But they have been really, really struggling with this one. And it's because they have no excuses. It lays fully at their feet. And it absolutely, it takes a lot to get someone like Greg Gutfeld to go totally nuclear on his Democrat co-hosts. But I do think that we need to focus a little bit more on this indefinite suspension of Jimmy Kimmel and his show over a lie that he told so confidently to his, admittedly dwindling audience. So we have a clip here of what he said on his show, and it's really quick. It's not, it wasn't the punchline or anything. And that's part of the reason why it's so insidious, is he just sneaks this blatant lie that totally reframes the entire assassination into it, as if anybody wouldn't notice. So we can play that.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff.
Just if you guys caught that, Jimmy Kimmel said that the shooter was a MAGA person, is what he was implying there, or pretty much blatantly stating. So it'd be one thing if he made this absurd comment. It would be bad enough if he made that absurd comment on Thursday or Friday or something, even though it was abundantly clear even by that time that the killer murdered Charlie over perceived fascism. But he didn't. He said it well after it was established that the killer was a leftist. The reaction from the right-wing internet on this was some of the most swift and brutal I think I've ever seen. People immediately compiled a list of companies involved with the show, from their sponsors like Dairy Queen and Mercedes and JCPenney to ABC and Disney and affiliated stations. So there are a lot of mixed feelings about this one. because at the same time, Trump's FCC chair, Brendan Carr, has been doing the rounds, expressing a strong interest in that particular result, as had Trump himself. And so there is a legitimate debate to be had here, I think, over whether or not that action was overstepping or inappropriate. And so I'd like to open it to the panel in general here, because I think there probably is at least a little bit of a variety of opinion on this.
Yeah, I'll start. What a scumbag Jimmy Kimmel is.
Yeah,
and
well,
I'm
not on
glad,
that. There's no opinion varying on that.
No, I'm so glad that you played the JD Vance clip and that you played it twice, because this is what they're doing, Jimmy Kimmel included. They are lying about Charlie Kirk. They are lying about the assassin. They're lying about what happened because they want to justify the assassination. Or at the very least, they want to make sure that nobody understands that this really is how a significant portion of their base feels, that it's okay to kill people. They want to hide that. They want to lie to the American people about that. Jimmy Kimmel knew exactly who this guy was, I'm going to not say the word, this person, well, I don't know, that's not accurate. This thing was that killed Charlie Kirk. And he lied about it to score cheap political points. And the topic comes up, okay, is it improper for the chair of the FCC to express criticism and say, hey, we're going to take a look at this in their license? You know, the fact is that the special privileges that the networks have for their protected monopoly use of the public airwaves does need to be, if we're going to have that system, I'm not so sure that's a system we need, but if the system's in place, then yeah, it says it has to be for the public benefit. And deliberately, blatantly, nefariously lying about things. And you can go back to, CBS 60 Minutes, when deliberately editing Kamala Harris's word salad so they won't embarrass her to help a single political party. That's something you have to look at. It does bother me if government is going to weigh in speech, but nevertheless, the precedent has been set when the Biden administration pressured Facebook, pressured the networks, pressured social media in general to censor and deplatform conservatives for expressing opinions and even for stating facts. Now, that's even worse because that's going beyond something that's properly in the government realm. I mean, we've already established that the FCC, whether we think it's a good system or not, this is the government's realm. And the government can, if it's going to grant the privilege, hold actors, hold beneficiaries of the system to say, hey, you actually have to be broadcasting in the public interest, and you can't freaking lie out of your teeth to help one political party or one ideology over another. So, if it were to go much further, maybe I'd have some concern, but screw Jimmy Kimmel. And by the way, this wasn't the FCC that decided to fire Jimmy Kimmel. This was his own network.
Yeah. And I see, I just want to mention, we love our commenters and everything, but I do have to push back a little bit on some of the comments that say things like, if Trump's FCC does something, the next administration can use it to further restrict speech. You mean like they've been doing for the last 2 decades?
Or against who? It's CBS,
Trump's
ABC,
not doing
and
anything
NBC.
further than what's the precedent that was already set.
Yeah,
and while I don't like it, I don't like that precedent was already set. But to say that this is going to lead to more, that ship has sailed. We are well past that, and I'm not laughing in this isn't happy laughing. This is I'm in disbelief at the situation that we're in, laughing. But yeah, and Sam, I want to go to you on this as well, because you have a good insight into some of the FCC stuff and maybe a little bit of the nuances in this issue here.
Thank you. The interesting thing to me is that the Trump administration really just piled on and gilded the lily and did a bunch of other dumb metaphors, because you don't have to do this. These people are destroying themselves, and you won this one. So just take the win and go off the field and prepare for the next game. To open up the idea that you're going to have a vindictive war against the media, it's silly. The media are already warring against themselves. Sinclair Media has the people who own a bunch of TV stations have been known for quite some time as being a very politically conservative family. And yet their stations weren't conservative at all. Why? Because for some reason, it seemed to pay off better for them not to be. And now they say, well, okay, now it's a little different. So we're going to come out and make our stand here. The same is true of Nexstar. So I think what's going on here is that the money people have recognized that this is a loser, that this situation that we're in is a loser. We have to go back to Stephen Colbert, who lost his show. He was losing $40 million a year. Now, if his show is losing $40 million a year, then you have to assume that Kimmel's show was losing a like amount of money or even more because it had lower ratings. So the whole system is starting to implode, which is what happens when you don't have market discipline. So what happened is you had these companies that we had for 2 decades now. We've had free money for everyone. So no matter what happens, you can just get more money. You just take loans, or you buy another company. And so as you consolidate these companies, you save the ones that are wrecked. For example, CNN has been saved multiple times through mergers with other companies, like the Time Warner merger and so forth. And it's happened again recently. So what happens here is that these companies are getting rescued by, honestly, fake money created by our government through the Federal Reserve. So when you have a situation like that where you don't have market discipline, then people are going to take the easiest route, and they're also going to do anything they please as long as they can get away with it. Well, now they can't. Money is tighter now. The money has gotten tighter, and so these organizations are looking around. These companies are saying, well, we're losing $40 million here. We don't really need to lose that $40 million, so let's cut this. And I think that what happened to Jimmy Kimmel was that this was simply, okay, it's obvious now that he's he's a negative for us fiscally, well beyond what we're losing directly on his show. So when Sinclair and Nexstar and I think there were others as well said we're not running the show anymore, well, ABC got the point, and they said, well, we'll put him on an indefinite hiatus. I presume that indefinite generally means, in a case like this, forever. But even if it doesn't, the message has been sent. So the Trump administration doesn't need to make threats to take away licenses. What they need to do is shut up and go back in the bushes and just say, okay.
Well, yeah. And that's been the biggest thing to me this week is like Pam Bondi's comments were so foot in mouth, so stupid that it boggles the mind. I cannot believe she had, I don't have something right in front of me to quote from. I'm sure Andy will find it in about 2 seconds, but she on some kind of a podcast or a television show said that they're going to be hunting down hate speech and prosecuting people for hate speech, which is not something that we support at all. The next day, she posted a tweet that seems to be both a clarification and a doubling down, where she kind of slyly said that hate speech is when you make calls to violence, which is, calls to violence are illegal. You can prosecute that, but she slapped the hate speech label on it. And I have to wonder if she thinks she's being like clever by co-opting a leftist term or something, but it's not clever. It's a terrible, terrible precedent. So, and I think all of us here were pretty appalled by that one. I wish that she would just stop talking and go away and do her job and not do these media things. But as the head of the department, the media stuff is part of her job. So I personally, I don't think that she has proven to be a very good pick. I think that she should probably be replaced, but I don't know. My opinions are just my opinions on that, but
yeah. Well, can I say a couple
they're mine too.
real quick? We run off, but not about Bondi. That's fine. I just want to repeat, in case people couldn't hear it very well, in the clip that we played from Jimmy Kimmel, precisely what he said. He said, we have, and this was on Monday, September 15th. This was after it was already reported in the Wall Street Journal that there were Antifa and pro-trans engravings on the bullets. Okay, he says, "quote We had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it." Now, that was an unwise thing to say on Monday night, especially considering the reporting that was already out there. And it was really, really stupid for Jimmy Kimmel not to take the chance on his Tuesday program to apologize and say, "I was wrong." And he didn't even have to be a sincere apology, which I'm sure he's not capable of, but he was 100%. By Tuesday afternoon, the charging document was released, and it was very, very clear. You could not deny the motivations and ideological perspective of the killer. And it was definitely not MAGA. And as people have pointed out in the comments here, that there are still people that believe that basically MAGA shot one of its own. And people who listen to this program and other podcasts, who find their own media, who have a broad spectrum of opinions that they get to see, know the truth. But the sad fact is millions and millions and millions of people in your family, people you know, don't. And when they are told something by the ladies on The View, when they're told something by Jimmy Kimmel, they believe it. And if you were to come up to them, at dinner or Thanksgiving and explain the truth, they would not believe you. And then you would stop talking to them because you wouldn't want to ruin your holiday. Now, about the, so even if Sinclair is the corporation, I think they own something like 200 ABC affiliates. They demanded that Disney and ABC pull Kimmel's show. Now, even if they were scared of an FCC crackdown, which they might have been, it's still their call to make. They could have stood up for Jimmy. What he said was indefensible. Actually, what he said was bad, but what was really indefensible is his having an opportunity to correct his lie. It was a purposeful lie, and he didn't want to do it because he didn't have to. And all the people that are big media stars, they think they're above it all. That they think, actually, they know that their job is not to tell people the truth. Their job is to propagandize for a leftist ideology and for the Democratic Party. That's their only job. A journalist's job today is not to tell you what's happening, is to tell you that Republicans are bad, Democrats are good, and to set narratives. But we also forget, I don't, but a lot of people forget that under the Biden administration, Mark Zuckerberg, there was censorship all over the place, and not over-the-air censorship. The FCC actually has in its charter a duty to regulate the public airwaves for the public good. Allowing a lie like this to get out and stay out is certainly not for the public good. In fact, it's very harmful to the public and to society. But the Biden administration wasn't just regulating public airwaves, which the government has the power to do. Mark Zuckerberg confessed that the Biden administration was in contact with them all the time. And the Biden administration, the White House, said, you need to censor that. You can't have people saying they don't like the vaccine. You can't have people saying that, anything that goes against what we want. You can't have people saying that they'd like to learn more about the Hunter Biden laptop. You have to censor all of those people. And in fact, it extends even to climate realism. The Heartland Institute's programs are regularly shadow banned because that is wrong thing. So, it's you're going to hear this a lot, but there's a categorical difference between the pulling of Jimmy Kimmel's show and the kind of censorship that was going on things that are supposed to be free. Jimmy Kimmel is very free to start up his own YouTube channel or, get a Substack like all these other loser midwits in the mainstream media now have to resort to because they're all getting fired. He's very free to do that, and nobody should be able to censor him for that. But it's very, very different when your network and your corporation has the privilege of public property, which is the broadcast airwaves. That comes with some rules. They broke the rules, and now they're finding out what happens when you do.
Yeah, it's impossible to have any sympathy at all, frankly, after the last couple of decades that we've been through on the left here. But anyway, unless we have something more that we want to comment on this, we have some news related specifically to the Heartland Institute, which is very entertaining to me. So with all this background, at the national level, the debate on overturning the endangerment finding and everything has continued on. And the Heartland Institute has been at the forefront of battling the climate cabal for decades. And so we've made some persistent, powerful enemies. One of those goofballs is Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who sent James and Heartland at large a very interesting letter of demands this week. I want to read the audience part of the letter that Senator Whitehouse sent us, which is, I am concerned about the role that fossil fuel companies, certain manufacturers, trade associations, polluter-backed groups, and others with much to benefit from the repeal of the endangerment finding, including your organization, played in drafting, preparing, promoting, and lobbying on the proposal. Your organization made the absolutely ridiculous assertion that carbon dioxide does not endanger public health and welfare. Other groups rushing to express their excitement about the partisan retreat from science included the American Trucking Association, the author of the EPA chapter of Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation. I always laugh when they mention Project 2025. It's just it lives rent-free. The National Automobile Dealers Association, and more. Given the billions at stake for polluting industry interests and significant potential conflicts of interest, the public deserves a full accounting of any efforts to influence this decision behind closed doors. Accordingly, by not later than September 30th, please produce to my staff all documents dated from November 5th, 2024 through July 29th, 2025 in your possession, custody, or control, including but not limited to internal and external communications, memoranda, reports, meeting materials, presentations, draft rescission language containing any of the following words or phrases or any variation thereof: endangerment, tailpipe, consumer choice, okay, preempt or preemption. For the avoidance of doubt, this request includes internal communications as well as external communications with executive branch officials, Trump-Vance 2025 or Trump-Vance transition personnel, trade associations, and any other relevant parties.
What?
White House also CC'd media on this letter so that they were alerted that he was making these demands of the Heartland Institute. So, James, I imagine that you found this off-putting and had some thoughts to share with the senator on it. What was Heartland's response?
Well, first, how I personally found it, many emotions: amusement, outrage. He's sending this, and he's sending it to the media, making a point to vilify and dehumanize the Heartland Institute, and me personally, the letter's directed to me, at a time when you have assassination culture. It's almost like he's pointing to his crazy followers and saying, hey, if you're looking for the next target, here's a good one. But Sheldon Whitehouse is such a coward, because whenever he's in the minority, whenever Democrats are in the minority and they don't have the power to call hearings and issue subpoenas and all that, he spouts off like he did, just the other day, all sorts of threats. Just before Democrats took control of the Senate in 2021, he publicly talked about how if and when Democrats regain control, that there are going to be subpoenas and hearings and perhaps criminal charges, specifically naming the Heartland Institute. And then once Democrats were controlling the Senate, he goes quiet as a church mouse. He's the absolute definition of a coward. So now that he can't do anything about it, he's going to puff out his chest and pretend like, he's this tough guy, when really all he wants to do is dehumanize and vilify his what he sees as his political adversaries. Now, here's the thing, Sheldon. You could pick up the phone and give me a call anytime. I'll take your call. You could say, come up to Capitol Hill and let's talk, and I'll talk, and I'll be as courteous and respectful as you show to me, because I do believe, like Charlie Kirk, that when dialogue and conversation ends, that's when violence begins. In the meantime, in his letter, it's so funny. I don't know whether he really believes this or if this is his way of trying to rile up his base. But he makes the accusation that the Heartland Institute and those who do what we do and believe what we believe, we're just out here screwing over the entire world to make a little buck, to make a little bit of money. And the reality is, Sheldon Whitehouse is a hypocritical grifter. Here's a quote. In October, this is from Influence Watch. In October 2017, a lobbyist for Public Citizen a left-wing advocacy organization founded by Ralph Nader. These are Whitehouse's friends, referred to Whitehouse as, quote, one of the Senate's more prolific players in the stock market, end quote, and an example of those with, quote, a high propensity for trading stocks in businesses they directly oversee from their committees, end quote. It goes on to document how Shelley here is buying up stock in companies when he has an insider tip due to his position that they're going to get favorable regulatory treatment, and then selling stocks when he has insider knowledge based upon his position in the Senate that they're going to have unfavorable government treatment. I mean, here's this guy who goes around talking about the need to protect the disadvantaged, those who are marginalized, which I guess would include those who don't have access to insider information. And then he takes advantage of that to enhance his own prodigious personal wealth. So when he goes around making accusations about the Heartland Institute and others, oh, you're just doing this to make money and your interests with big oil or whatever else, the guy is the most hypocritical grifter on the planet. And I guess he envisions Heartland might be doing that because that's how he sees his job. That's how he sees his own reason for existence. I have this position of power. How can I abuse it to amass more personal wealth? Well, guess what, Sheldon? Not everyone thinks like you do.
So this was a really poor week for Senator Sheldon to be doing this, Sheldon Whitehouse to be doing this, because everybody is pretty much fed up and at their wits' end. Not that the Heartland Institute wouldn't, respond aggressively on any other week, but I think this was a particularly bad timing for him. And so I want to read a little bit from the press release that the Heartland Institute sent out, also to the media. And I actually don't know what's being referenced here, James. So I'm going to need the inside scoop on where this joke comes from.
Happy to provide it.
So I will read the first couple paragraphs that you wrote up here for our press release. But Democratic senator from Rhode Island demands all correspondence from Heartland with Trump administration concerning rescission of the endangerment finding by EPA. Heartland President James Taylor responds by demanding Sheldon Whitehouse acknowledge energy and climate positions he has promoted that benefit his many corporate political donors. Heartland also demands to know of Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, have you ever chosen to be a long-term member of any social club that was not whites only? And also comments that Senator Whitehouse in 2023 led the opposition to an amendment that would have denounced the statement calling Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas a house slave on the House Senate Judiciary Committee. So what's the whites only club reference? Because you guys have been making jokes about that for a couple days, and I am out of the loop on that lore.
Well, it's an illustration that the left doesn't care about minorities, doesn't care about women, doesn't care about any of their so-called marginalized communities. All they care about is advancing their leftist agenda. And when you can utilize some type of messaging to your advantage, you do it. But there's no real concern about that. Sheldon Whitehouse has talked about the need to defeat white supremacist culture, or whatever the exact phrase is, but pretty darn close to that. Systemic white supremacism, I think is the term he used. And yet, he has been a longtime member of this social club. It's one of those high-end, I'm guessing the fee to get in is going to be in the tens of thousands, actually probably hundreds of thousands. I mean, it's the high-end rich guys country club. I think it's in Newport, Rhode Island.
Beach club, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, beach club. There you go. Because, of course, we can't expect Sheldon to actually hang out on a public beach like the rest of us. They need their own beach club. But anyway, and reports are, and when it's been presented to Sheldon, he's offered no refuting evidence that this is a whites-only club. There are no minority members, even though, this is a deep blue state, Rhode Island, right? I was in Providence, Rhode Island just a few months ago. I saw plenty of people that were not white there. But nevertheless, in Shelley's club, you can't have any people that aren't white. So for him to get on his woke horse, and especially to be railing about white supremacy all the time, he's the perfect example. He's a hypocrite. That's what Sheldon Whitehouse is. And by the way, I know it's Sheldon Whitehouse. We're having a little bit of an internal debate. Is it really Sheldon White Club, or is it Sheldon Whites Only? I'm not sure what the more accurate description is, but maybe we can ask Shelley how he'd like to be referred to.
Yeah, let me just add very quickly. If you go to heartland.org right now, the first featured item is our press release on on reacting or answering, I should say, Sheldon Whitehouse's threatening letter, as if he thinks. Well, the whole thing is bizarre. But my only point of bringing this up is that James Taylor and I worked on putting this release together, and I worked on it last night before releasing it this morning, and I decided to find an example of Sheldon Whitehouse sliming the Heartland Institute under the protection, the libel and slander protections that you get when speaking on in Congress on the floor. And so he would regularly single out the Heartland Institute for lies and slander. And I found an example of that, and it made my blood boil. So if you want to look at that and you like the Heartland Institute, and you haven't had your exercise yet today and need to get your heart rate up, you might want to watch that. But also down there at the bottom of the release, you'll also find the proof that he blocked an amendment in the Senate Judiciary Committee to condemn, I suppose, a colleague, but condemn Clarence Thomas being called a house slave. And he spoke up twice to block the amendment. So he can go pound sand on his private beach club for all I care.
It's interesting to point out that Whitehouse is trying to use the power of his position to destroy a private organization, which the Heartland Institute is. He has done many things in the past to try and bring us down, and he will continue as long as he has this power. When you look at the what he's accusing the Heartland Institute of doing, he's accusing us of trying to educate government officials about the science of climate change and energy production, and awful things like that. We're an educational organization. We take that seriously, and we've been doing that. And his point is that, well, I don't like the education that you're giving, so I'm going to try and take you out. Well, I think that sort of mentality deserves a really strong objection, and that is the premise behind our response.
And I hope that people watching will go to the Heartland website, heartland.org, read the press release, and the press release at the bottom links to the letter that I sent to Sheldon Whitehouse personally, and we've released it publicly. And it in many ways is an academic response, pointing out all of the scientific evidence that shows we're not in a climate crisis, but also for those of you who like to see a bully get punched in the mouth himself, I do turn on him some of his bullying tactics, and there is a little bit of deserved mocking and ridicule of Shelley in that letter. So I think you'll see it enlightening as well as entertaining.
And it is extremely entertaining. I want to see, does anybody else have like a comment here? Because we actually, we do have a little ad read that we need to do. But because we have such gracious fans that help to sponsor the show. But yeah, no, I really do recommend that all of our viewers go over to the heartland.org website and check out our response. I thought it was extremely funny when I saw Whitehouse's letter, his initial letter. I was kind of astonished that he thinks that he gets to have all of our communications when he's not even in a position to subpoena us. What? No? Okay. So, yeah. So, Jim, if you have a moment.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we mention the wonderful sponsor of this program and also our Climate Realism show, which is broadcast at 1 p.m. Eastern every Friday, and that is Advisor Metals. So if you listen to a lot of conservative shows like this one and lots of others, you hear tons of pitches urging you to buy gold and silver and other precious metals. And there are just a ton of companies that do that out there. But if you want, but we want to tell you why you should trust our sponsor, Advisor Metals. And it's the man who runs the company, and his name is Ira Brashatsky. In fact, I know that some people that watch this show and the Climate Realism show have already gotten in touch with Ira personally and have reported back very well. So, but he's the managing member of Advisor Metals. He does not employ those high pressure tactics or deceptive marketing ploys like you see from a lot of those firms in so-called big gold. He also doesn't deal in rare coins. When you buy gold and other precious metals from Advisor Metals, you are dealing in quality bullion, and that is so much better to have when the time comes to liquidate this valuable physical asset. So when you buy from Advisor Metals, you will have your investment sent discreetly directly to your home. And I just must point out that Ira is advertising on our programs because he is an America First patriot. He doesn't donate to Democrats. He refuses to work with the proxies of the Chinese Communist Party. And he, like us, abhor the machinations and schemes of the World Economic Forum. And so we are very proud to have him and his company as a sponsor. So if you want to diversify your portfolio, if you want to back up your IRA with real physical bullion of precious metals, please go to climaterealismshow.com/metals. You can leave your information there, and Ira or his team will get in touch with you and make the process very easy. Again, climaterealismshow.com/metals, and be sure to tell them who sent you, and that helps us as you're helping yourself at Advisor Metals. Thank you.
And I just, we do have a clip, a Whitehouse clip. We live rent free in his brain. It's pretty amazing. We're going to be pulling that up in a couple of seconds here for you guys. But yeah, it's, what a way to show that we're winning on these issues, because if we weren't winning, if we weren't like powerful on this front, on defeating the climate cult and all of the overreach that's destroying our electricity prices, it's making it harder for people to travel or to get, raising food prices, makes your groceries ridiculously expensive when energy is expensive. We're fighting all of that. And what a great endorsement to be called out by one of the leading Greens, because they're so worried that we're going to win on these issues. Alrighty, let's see. Do we have the clip?
Distort the public's understanding of climate. That's what this industry is up to. One front group for that industry is called the Heartland Institute. It's a nice name, but they're not very nice people. For decades, the Heartland Institute has played a prominent role disseminating alternative facts and fake science at the behest of its industry funders. They've got a long history of doing the bidding of industry funders. In the 1990s, it was teamed up with Philip Morris to challenge the facts about the health risks of tobacco. Now, using the same tactics, along with funding from the Koch family foundations, ExxonMobil, and other fossil fuel interests, it is out to undermine public confidence in the established scientific consensus about climate change. Heartland is quite shameless in its methods, once sponsoring a billboard comparing those who accept the science of global warming to the Unabomber.
Oh no.
Hey, one quick comment.
For my 180th time to wake up speech.
When you're giving a boring speech, do not have a sign that says time to wake up beside you.
Pro tip from Sam Karnick.
I'd like to explore the Heartland Institute's latest gambit, which is to airdrop climate denial propaganda directly into children's classrooms. This spring, Heartland delivered packages to hundreds of thousands of K-12 and college-level science teachers across the country. These materials were designed to have a veneer of credibility. Each one was stamped with the headline, "Study, Science Teachers Giving Unbalanced Education on Climate Change." This intriguing story was attributed to something called Environment and Climate News. Inside the package, the teachers found a report titled, "Why Scientists Disagree About Global Warming." That was issued by something called the Non-Governmental International Panel on Climate Change. As a bonus, each teacher also received a DVD copy of the History of Climate Change in Greenland, produced by something that was called Idea Channel. A cover letter from Heartland's Center for Transforming Education into propaganda, I assume is how that sentence gets finished, asks teachers to, quote, consider the possibility the science of climate change isn't settled. So that's the package that they got. Let's look behind that veneer. When you do, the smell gets pretty rotten. It turns out that the environment and climate news is not actually news. It's not a news outlet. It's the monthly newsletter of, guess who? The Heartland Institute. They are citing themselves, masquerading their newsletter as a news outlet. But the foolishness goes on. Their featured article that I mentioned, Study Science Teachers Giving Unbalanced Education on Climate Change, well, that was written by a person named Bonner Cohen, who is a featured expert, guess where? With the Heartland Institute, who previously held senior positions in, believe it or not, Philip Morris front groups. Their non-governmental international panel on climate change sounds like a well-known actual authority, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The actual Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is a United Nations-sanctioned, Nobel Prize-winning scientific body that reports the findings of thousands of climate scientists from hundreds of countries. The Heartland Group, this so-called non-governmental International Panel on Climate Change, is a misleading decoy designed to mimic the real entity. The three experts who wrote the Non-Governmental International Panel on Climate Change report, Heartland pushed out, do not have degrees in climate change modeling, do not have degrees in climate science, all are paid by Heartland. All their claims have been repeatedly debunked by real science. Now, there's one faint hint of accuracy.
I think we need to stop a little bit here and take. So, first, James, there's a lot to unpack here. I don't know if we could spend a whole hour doing this. Actually, maybe we should do this once in a while. Just play and debunk as we go along with Shelley White Club here. But if I had the means to do it, I want to thank Senator Whitehouse for being such a great public relations professional on behalf of the Heartland Institute. So thank you very much. And I take back the idea that it triggers me. It actually makes me smile. So James.
It reminds me, watching that clip reminds me of watching Kamala Harris on the campaign trail. The best thing for the Trump campaign was people getting to watch Kamala Harris in her own words. And the best thing for the Heartland Institute is getting to watch Shelley Whitehouse in his own words. I was particularly amused as he tried to diminish the credentials of scientists who have a climate realist perspective, many of whom we've worked with or who have sent us information, whatever else. And when he talks about not having degrees in climate modeling, like as if that really is a representative of the real world, or in climate science specifically, I just think of this week when the National Academy of Sciences rushed out, without anyone asking them to, rushed out some quote unquote study because they're afraid that the Trump EPA is going to overturn the endangerment finding, that carbon dioxide is an endangerment to human health and welfare. And the reality is the limited number of people that authored that report on behalf of the National Academy of Sciences, very few have any background, education, expertise in atmospheric science. So sure, Shelley, we can play that game all you want. But I'm glad that he's obsessed with us. It shows that we are indeed having the impact that we want to have. And it wouldn't be possible to have a more incompetent foil than Shelley Whitehouse. So that kind of works to our advantage too.
Yeah, I would also like to say, check out climaterealism.com to find out what information he says is so false. Heartland.org, the Climate Realism Show, and this same channel on Fridays. Yeah, we've got it all. Did we want to continue with that video a little bit and see what else he has to say?
I'm game. Let's go.
In this propaganda publication Heartland put out, there actually is a PBS series called Idea Channel. However, the Idea Channel DVD in the Heartland packet has nothing to do with that series. It was actually produced by something called the Free to Choose Network, whose funding, like Heartland's, is linked to the fossil fuel industry. It's another masquerade designed to mislead.
Yeah, hold on one second, Andy.
One of the tricks of Heartland's little...
Yeah, so yeah, he's talking about the Free to Choose Network and that Milton Friedman started. They have tons of shows on PBS and have for years. So that's another lie. That's so easy to debunk. Go ahead.
Scheme was to dupe legitimate scientists into participating. One of the experts interviewed, Ria Oldenburg, the curator at Greenland's Narsak Museum, was told that she was participating in a video on Norse history for the Discovery Channel. When she found out what she'd been duped into, she said, "I am somewhat horrified." Other participants were frequent flyers in the climate denial circus, like Willie Soon, who received over $1 million in funding since 2001 from the Koch brothers, the American Petroleum Institute.
Can we pause that for a second, Andy?
And
I think he's particularly upset about Willie Soon and many of the other scientists that he's trying to, disparage because they're not white and they wouldn't be allowed in his social club. So, Willie Soon, I think, would deserve to be in the social club. If he were foolish enough to want to be in the social club, he probably wouldn't. But I think that's the reason why, of all the scientists that Sheldon wants to single out by name, I'm guessing that might be the reason.
Other fossil fuel interests. The year the video was released, Willie Soon received nearly $20,000 from Freedom to Choose. The Heartland cover letter asked teachers to consider the possibility the science of climate change isn't settled. Even that's not new. This echoes the infamous Big Tobacco declaration, "Doubt is our product." The heart of the fossil fuel industry scheme is to undermine legitimate science with false doubts. Because of the financial stakes behind industry science denial, and because of the communications advantages propaganda has over real science, you don't need to waste a lot of time in peer review, for instance. You go straight to the networks. This scheme is a real problem for institutions like our schools that cherish and support real science. All this masquerade and subterfuge by Heartland Institute looked a lot like fraud. So Senators Schatz, Warren, Markey, and I wrote to Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos to ask whether DeVos and her staff at the Department of Education helped or coordinated with the Heartland Institute on this scheme to pollute our classrooms with phony science. Well, that simple request drew quite the response from our friends at the Heartland Institute. "Your letter is a monumental misuse of your office and a betrayal of the trust of your constituents," wrote Heartland CEO Joseph Bast. He called our letter defamatory and despicable. "Shame, shame, shame," he proclaimed in bold font. This, unironically, from that same classy group that put up the billboard comparing anyone who accepts climate science to the Unabomber, just to give you an idea of their level of shame. But even that little outburst.
Do you think he'll read our new letter in the House?
I doubt it. Yeah.
Is considerably nicer than back in 2015 when Bast called some of us fascists and ethically challenged mental midgets. Why is the Heartland Institute
Joe Bast.
so very touchy? We obviously hit a nerve. The lesson is poke an imposter, and the imposter gets very agitated. Well, fortunately, teachers are smart people who follow real science. Imposters like Heartland, who pretend that their stuff is coming through an idea channel that it isn't, who mimic the name of real organizations to try to fool people, who pretend that their newsletter is real news and package the whole thing up as if it's intended to be helpful to teachers, well, they face an uphill battle against informed educators. Just one example, Nebraska recently approved new state standards requiring climate change to be taught in schools. According to the Omaha World Herald, Nebraska's new standards, and I quote, challenge kids to think and act like scientists, which is exactly what our science classrooms ought to do. One Omaha resident encouraged the school board to do the ethical thing and tell the next generation what's going on with climate. And a science professor at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln said that the standards represented good solid science education. So this is what we need in science education: real-life scientists from real institutions of higher learning engaging and helping our children learn. What we don't need...
Can you pause for a second? Let's just be clear what is so upsetting to Sheldon Whitehouse, and that is the fact that there are many, many scientists who look at the data and do not buy in to the hypothesis that human activity is causing an unstoppable climate crisis. That's it. And he is outraged and is actually trying to, and is for years has tried to leverage his government power to smear and destroy the Heartland Institute. The letter that we got from him this week was actually quite mild compared to ones that we've gotten in the past. And we've gotten them from other members of Congress on the left who have tried to leverage their power to destroy this organization for the purpose of making sure that the message of climate realism and the promotion of actual climate science does not penetrate what they control in academia and in media. That's what Sheldon Whitehouse's goal here is, which is where all these smears come from. So, while I try my best to be charitable to even people I dislike, I find it extremely difficult to do that with Sheldon Whitehouse because he is such, and has been such, a relentless liar and smear merchant about the Heartland Institute. So
anyway, we thought, go ahead, James, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm still waiting for him to smear a white scientist by name. Just saying.
It's interesting that he keeps talking about how we're supported by all these terrible people who have tons of money and we go to public beaches. I don't know anyone on staff who's on a private beach club. So I think he's doing a lot better than we are in that regard.
Yeah, there's a little bit of projection going on here. And it is funny when you get Democrats standing up and pretending like they have no idea what a 501c3 is, or that they have no idea what nonpartisan like a think tank does. And he acts like he's astonished and appalled that think tanks exist and attempt to promote their beliefs in the public square. It's very, very funny. So yeah, as one of our viewers here, I am Capo1 says, they only attack those they see as a threat. And we are very happy that he sees us as a threat, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, thank you guys for putting up with that. We were having fun with that. It's always kind of entertaining to see, well, I was going to say Sheldon Whitehouse, but I kind of like the White Club moniker. That's pretty good. But all right, you guys. Well, I think that's probably going to do it for today. That's all the time we have, unfortunately. Thank you, everybody, for your attention to these matters. We are live every week on Thursdays at noon Central on Rumble, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you want to look. So let's go down the line here. James, do you have anything that you want to pitch to the audience here before we sign off?
No, just keep staying engaged, fight for the truth, and I believe the truth will win out.
Absolutely. All right, Sam?
Go get some truth at heartland.org. There's plenty there for you, and we appreciate your business.
Absolutely. And Jim?
Yeah, we'll see you in this audience, plus Linnea over here. Oop, here we go. I always point the wrong way on TV for the Climate Realism Show, which is every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. And our special guest tomorrow, she promises to be there. Lois Perry from Heartland UK Europe. It's going to be a fantastic show. So see you there.
Yep, absolutely. So for audio listeners, remember to rate us well on whatever service you're using. Leave a review. Thank you so much to everybody. We will see you again next week.